The Big Interview.
My mission every week is to find interesting people with useful stuff to say and to get that information out their heads and onto this podcast. I'm going to interview loads of people within the MSP world, but I've also got plenty of people I know outside as well who've got plenty of things to tell us that you can use to grow your business and grow your profit.
I'm Glenn Robertson. I'm MD and now owner of Purechannels. Purechannels has been going since 2005.
It's a marketing agency that only works with MSPs, resellers, and vendors. Now, we met at a CRN event in Manchester. In fact, we were both on a panel. It was a marketing panel, and we were discussing the concept of MDF. I thought for a second he was talking about medium density fiberboard. And of course, Glenn meant something else.
Typically, MDF stands for Marketing Development Fund. And that's something that is provided to partners, resellers, MSPs, by vendors as a way to help the partner to promote the vendor's wares. Vendors will typically allow an amount of money for qualifying partners. And the way that you qualify is potentially determined by what type or what level or what tier of partner you are. Some ways the vendor will actually allocate certain budget, but normally the vendor will provide MDF based on something like a rebate or a payback or a certain percentage of previous spend. And that previous spend can be recent spend, it can be last 12 months, it can be related to the level of revenue that is generated by the MSP. What happens typically is the MSP will have to apply for a level of funding that hopefully they will have accrued from previous revenue they've generated, or they can do it on an ad hoc basis whereby they think that there is a suitably beneficial activity that they could carry out. And it could be attending events, it could be running an email campaign, it could be some dedicated social media activity. And they have to put in an application to the vendor in order to apply for this funding. The vendor will assess whether or not this looks like a goer, and then decide whether or not to allocate the budget. And then that budget can be allocated in one of a few ways. It can be co-funded, it can be part funded, or it can be fully funded.
And the bombshell you dropped at the conference from memory was that you believe there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds worth of MDF that just simply don't go claimed.
Absolutely, millions, without any question. We did have a recent conversation with a vendor that did actually give a figure. They put a figure of £2 million on the value of unspent MDF in the last financial year, which was pretty amazing. And that's I think where the opportunity lies, because some MSPs will be getting it right. They'll be making the most of this funding. They'll be doing genuine marketing activity that not only helps promote them and generates leads for them, but it will also be helping promote the vendor. So there's two sides to this job. It's the partner having the awareness and the understanding that this firstly exists, and then you've got the vendor who needs to communicate the concept well enough to the MSP to tell them that it is available.
And this might seem like a schoolboy question, but do you have to use vendor funding to promote the vendor's services or products, or can it be used for just general marketing, so long as you're selling more of what the vendor's supplying?
Yeah, no, I mean, typically it has to be aligned to the vendor. Let's give a Microsoft example. Microsoft have thousands of partners around the UK. And if one of those partners wants to apply for funding, then typically Microsoft would want it to be aligned to marketing activity that the partner is doing around Microsoft services and solutions. So, but ultimately, look, you need to fill that form and you need to have a commitment to the vendor. If you're going to be spending their money, you need to show that the money is being spent on activity that is going to help you to sell more of their stuff. And when you do that, right, everybody wins, because if you're selling more stuff, you make more money. That means the vendor makes more money. That means they're going to be happier, and the cycle continues.
So to get started, you pick up the phone or you drop an email to your rep or whoever you speak to at the vendor, and you say, I want to access your MDF. How do we get started? Is it really as simple as that?
Yeah, actually, it is. So again, there are a couple of ways. Typically, partners will have access to a portal, and quite often, if the vendor's portal is good enough, it should have an MDF section on there. Partners should have access to partner account managers or channel account managers. And if they are managed and they have that direct daily contact, they can just call them up and say, we've got an idea, want to do some marketing activity next quarter. is there MDF available for this, and can I make an application? This isn't just about free money. This is about working together with your vendor to do ultimately what you want to do as an MSP, to generate leads and sell more stuff. This money is available if you are serious about doing marketing activity that generate leads to do more business.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. How does Purechannels get involved to help MSPs with MDF?
We've worked with all of the big name brands and vendors that you would expect to see in IT and telecoms. Huge experience of the last 15 years globally on managing marketing activity for vendors to and through the channel. We get it from the vendor side. We understand how they work. And then from a partner side, this is essentially about vendor management and executing the activity that has been applied for. So we help MSPs to look at potential funding that's available. We can help or have the conversations with the PAMs or CAMs back at the vendor. We can absolutely write the plans that the MSP will need to submit as part of their MDF application. And then we go right the way through to execution and delivery. What that means is that we kind of complete that cycle, because not only are we coming up with working with the MSP to understand their business, what their needs are, and how they can benefit from this vendor relationship. We can help them with vendor communication and vendor conversations. We can create the plan and help them with the application in order to secure the funding, and then we can deliver and execute on the campaign that has been planned out. And then the final piece to this puzzle, and it is something that does get left out, believe it or not, this is the tracking, the reporting, and ultimately the ROI. And that means that for the MSP, we make sure that we get the results.
Cool. What's your website address, Glenn?
Purechannels.co.uk.